Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadale Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo. Good evening, all of you. Welcome. Pranam. Blessed to be in the assembly of each one of you, Vaishnavas, sincere seekers, lovers of truth. So we have decided today to alter our Selko sharing and move that for tomorrow. And today we'll be having Ishtagoshti, basically, back and forth Q&A, quest and exploration, inviting for any topic, any question, maybe be related to what we have been discussing so far in our morning sharings, in our parikrama, or related to some other topic, no problem. There is some bandha or interrelatedness among everything, so it's always interconnected. We are never outside of the bigger picture. Thank God. So, yeah, questions are very, very powerful. Many times questions are more important than answers, and presenting the question is a big step. Staying with the question is another one. And maybe a so-called answer brings more questions than before we ask our question. And that's many times the real answer is to sit with the questions. Whether the question that we present or whether the question that come after we hear the so-called answer. So that's how the journey of spiritual progress unfolds, through a set of questions. And I don't like the word answers because it feels like closure and bringing conclusiveness to something that is always open, always in eternal disclosure. So we will say that the more we advance, the more we had better questions to ask. Deeper, broader, more comprehensive, more significant, more committed, because at the end of the day, a question has to come from a place of willingness to commit myself to the truth. It's not like a casualty. It's not like, oh, I have a question, just like passing curiosity, but actually it's not that important. I don't care for the answer. It's just I have this question. Question needs to be significant, important, something that really needs to be presented. And if we are practicing and living our life sincerely, there will be corresponding questions that will reflect the sincerity of their journey. If I'm living my life and my practice very deeply and sincerely, I have zero questions, that's kind of an oxymoron, a contradiction of terms. There's always corresponding set of questions to every chapter of the journey. Not to force ourselves to have questions. Now, Mara said that I'm supposed to have very important questions. But just to normalize the role of questions in the journey, because sometimes, as we say many times, we end up stigmatizing what we should be normalizing. Sometimes questions are taboo, are forbidden, or only certain questions are allowed, not other questions, and this and that. So, at the end of the day, our questioning ends up being a fitting in and a performance to impress the one we are presenting the question. And that's no longer a question. That's another mask in the form of a question. But our questions should be coming from a place of such nature that the masks are put off with the question itself. We show up sincerely, vulnerably, question in hand, and itself that act, no matter what answer may come, what may come as a result, but just showing up from that place in itself is an answer, so to say. It's part of the solution. So you're invited if you want, if you have something to bring, something that you feel is necessary to bring. It's a question, it can be a topic, it can be something that you feel the need to explore in more depth, in more breadth, whatever. All seasons of the heart are welcome. So Tapananandini is raising her hand.
Sri Bhaktisiddhanta took initiation of sannyasa initiation.
Who?
Sri Bhaktisiddhanta
Okay.
sannyasa initiation from the books or his pictures.
Yes.
So just wanted to know what is that? Was that something very new or is that
So I'm repeating the question since I'm recording. May not be. So Tapanandini is asking if the fact that Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta took sannyas from a picture of his Diksha Guru Gaura-Kishora Das Babaji is something relatively new, or something that was kind of already part of the standard practice of taking some bows in front of a picture, so to say. In general, we will say there are a few things to say. One will be, no, it was not something quite standard. And to this day, for many, is not only seen as something shocking, but it's even seen as a deviation from the norm for some people. No, because Gaura-Kishora Das Babaji at that time he had passed. It's not that he was alive somewhere else and he brought Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada brought the picture, and he had passed and he took sannyas from a picture. So one could bring that argument, okay, nobody gave you sannyas. And on top of that, then he gave sannyas to so many, right? So you are giving sannyas to so many, but who gave you sannyas? A picture. I mean, again, if we take it externally, formally, it seems like that. So this is very tied to the Saragrahi spirit of Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta, in which the connection with his Gurudev, Gaura-Kishora Das Babaji, was really way beyond any formality. So let's put it this way, he didn't need his Guru to be present in 3D for his Guru to be present to him. No. Even the picture was a formality. No. He didn't need a picture, actually, right? Because the presence of his Gurudev, the presence of one's Gurudev has to be here present. Maybe a picture, maybe a 3D presence, but if my heart is not beating in the proper direction, everything else is a form, is a formality. Some other people may have taken sannyas or whatever vows from a living guru, but they have received that in a not very living way. It can happen. And he received that order from his guru who was, quote unquote, not living, from a picture, which is, quote unquote, not living. But he felt so much living current coming from that. So much live wire was there. So this is quite tied to his notion of Bhagavad Parampara or Siksha Parampara, which many times, again, it's another complex point for some, which cannot digest the idea of the point he was trying to make. No, his point was not Diksha is no longer necessary. He was saying Diksha can end up being a mere formality if there is not inner substance, inner transmission, Siksha. No? And being in a particular chain of gurus, as glorious and beautiful as that can be, if there is no inner substance being transmitted one by one to the other, in Srila Siddha Maharaj's words, that's a mere succession of bodies. That we can trace back who is the guru of my guru and the guru of my guru and the guru. That doesn't mean that whatever has been transmitted is the highest thing necessarily. It can be, hopefully, his idea, but it's not that the mere succession of bodies and having each name for each generation in place warranties the quality of the transmission. So this is another example of that. Someone may question the quality of the transmission because Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta took sanya from a picture. What's the quality of the transmission there? But then you see his life. No, at the end of the day, how to say in English, the pudding, the proof of is in the pudding. The test is in the pudding. It's how to say falena faricete. You know the tree by its fruit. So he lived an exemplary life as a sannyasi before that, as a brahmachari. He was Naishtika brahmachari, which means he was all his life basically renunciant. Which again, I'm not saying that to make a point. Renunciants are better than non-renunciants. We are not saying that, and we are saying just that he was an exemplary in that particular order of life, even before being a sannyasi. Even before being a sannyasi, was more serious and austere and strict than most of the sannyasis, most of the Babajis, at the example we gave today, right? When Gorkishore Das Babaji passed, and many Babajis say, okay, we are Babajis, we are supposed to put him into samadhi. If you are brahmachari, say, okay. Who of all of you have any improper connection with women the last month? Whomever has not done that, you can put the samadhi. One after another start to disappear. Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta was left with his Gurudev's sacred body. So again, it could be seen as an exception to the rule, no? Because again, we do not see that has become a norm even among his followers. It's not that, okay, if after that every disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta is taking sannyas from a picture. That's not happening. So it's kind of an exceptional case, because Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta was an exceptional case. That doesn't mean that we take the exception and make it the rule, or that we try to imitate someone who is utterly exceptional. Again, you study his lifestyle is very unique. You know? Like from day one, he was born in umbilical cord, crossed like this, like a Brahminical thread, right? And the baby taken in front of Jagannath, and the garland of Jagannath like falling on top of the baby, and you name it, from day one to last day. Very clear symptoms of a Mahapurusha, a great personality. So he could do that. And probably he did that also to show that this can be done in certain cases, not to be imitated. Again, he then gave sannyas himself. And of course, he took sannyas, which in itself is enough controversy unto itself. Sannyas. What to speak from a picture? But sannyas, no? Because at that time in the Gaudiya Vaishnava community, nobody was a sannyasi. The renouncants were Babajis. That was kind of the norm. There had been sannyasis, and we are not saying there had. Mahaprabhu was a sannyasi. Associates of Mahaprabhu were sannyasis. Prabodhananda Saraswati, Brahmananda Bharati. There were many sannyasis among Mahaprabhu. So it's not that there's no precedent for sannyas ashram in Gaudiya Sampradaya. But somehow, after the time of Mahaprabhu, Babaji became the norm. That this particular form of pronunciation, which in one sense is not too different. No? I mean, at least in my opinion, it's not that a Babaji or a sannyasi is better, worse, different. They are renunciants. It's a different way of conceiving renunciation. It's not even that Babajis are only practicing and not sharing, and sannyasis are only sharing and not practicing. Please no. We know examples of many Babajis who write books and travel and share the message. Some others who are living in a cave. Sannyasis who spread the message. Sannyasis who are not traveling and are more. It's all about one's nature. But at that time, Babaji was the norm, like wearing white as a renunciant. And Mahaprabhu, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur brought the sannyas order back, which is a part of the Varnashram Dharma. Somehow Babaji is an order that lies outside of Varnashram, which is a way to say Vaishnavas are beyond Varnashram Dharma. In principle, not to say I am beyond Varnashram, but the ideal of Vaishnavism lies beyond the pursuit of Varnashram. So Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta agreed with that, and he brought sannyas to make his renunciants members of the society, because the Babajis were seen as too otherworldly, too outside of society. Okay, sannyas are interacting with the modern world, as we were talking these days, with modernity, with technology, using all that in the spirit, hopefully, of Yukta Vairagya, which can be a very tricky word. We don't want to abuse these noble ideas, but still, those ideals are there, and someone like Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta walked that talk. So sannyas was a way of reinserting into the social scheme his own monks for the purpose of sharing the message, which in one sense is very much similar to what Mahaprabhu did. Right? Mahaprabhu, many reasons for Mahaprabhu's sannyas. Today in the morning we even share about internal reasons, but one of the external reasons was, okay, in society, sannyas is taken very seriously. I mean, at that time in that society, at least. Of course, if I travel to Argentina and I say in Buenos Aires, hey, I'm Maharaj. Probably they called police and put me into jail or whatever, right? Who is this eccentric guy with orange blankets around him? Well, at a certain time, place, and circumstance, Mahaprabhu thought, okay, as a sannyasi, people may put some attention to what I want to share. So he did that with that idea in mind. If you want to call preaching strategy, whatever word you want to use. And yeah, it's true in certain places, even today in India, if you're a sannyasi, people, I mean, again, it's tricky because you can just accept sannyasi so people respect you, or you obtain like a retirement before retiring, and you obtain all that. That's not sannyasa. But on a cultural level, it's interesting how I remember I told this many times a few years ago. I was in Kolkata. We were doing like a parikram in Kolkata, like we did the other day. The other day is yesterday. Still. Wow. Okay. So we were with one devotee in the car, and he was driving. And at one point in Kolkata, crowded streets, there was some motorbike coming. They have like almost an accident, and the devotee next to me started to say a few Bengali mantras to him. And the guy in the motorbike stopped and went down the motorbike, started to talk, and I was like, oh, no, we are on parikram here. I don't want, no. And they started to talk, higher, lower, louder. And the guy from the motorbike came like on fire to the car. And the devotee next to me, I was sitting in the front next, and he says something Bengali quickly, loudly, and points to me. But the very moment he says that, this guy who was coming like just to swallow my friend, is like, and returns to the motorbike and leaves. So I do not speak Bengali. I know some words, but I felt, I told him, you told him that here is a sannyasi, how you dare to speak like that? I said, yeah, I told him that. So it's interesting. Can have some practical use in that sense. But my point with this is like still now, which of course India is not the same as hundreds of years ago, or even at the time of Bhaktisiddhanta, still in the cultural, collective, subconscious, there is some, in general, not in every case, respect for that. So Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta consider, let's bring this sannyas order back into Gaudiya Vaishnavism, and let's have my sannyas interact with the world from a real place of renunciation. And he was really strict with that, and I would say almost all of his sannyasis were really very exemplary in that. He didn't give sannyas like to anyone and everyone. So he was but again, he accepted sannyas first before giving sannyas to others. So again, his guru was a Babaji, Gaura Kishore Das Babaji. His other guru, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, eventually took Babaji, right? Most of his life he was Grihastha, but at the very last years, Babaji. The Siksha guru of Bhaktivinoda Thakur was Jagannath Das Babaji, another Babaji. So he brought sannyas in the context of that. So it was an interesting move, strategic move. You know? And also one of the reasons he will say that at that time, not all, but many Babajis or many renunciants in the cloth of Babaji were not behaving properly. So he felt like the order of Babaji, which is the color of the six Goswamis, and the order of this personality was not being properly represented. So he accepted sannyas. Of course, I personally have thought many times, well, now the order of sannyas has not been represented so nicely. Maybe we need to bring Babaji back or some other color and some other name or of course, ideally have sannyasis honoring what sannyas properly means, right? So Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta was one of those examples, and he took sannyas from the picture of Gaura Kishore Das Babaji. Again, for him, that's not different from Gaura Kishore Das Babaji. It reminds me this famous example. We were talking about that the other day, I think in Kolkata, at Sundar Gopal's house, maybe, of Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj, one of disciples of Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta, who received sannyas, not from him, but after he passed. But he was, again, lifelong brahmachari. And for example, he will be sitting in his room at 100 years old. He was devoted since year 0. So he lived till 102 years. So he had 1 century of devotional practice. How long have you been devoted? 1 century. And he will be in his room 100 years old on a bed. He couldn't move much. And someone will enter into his room with a T-shirt of Jagannath. And you can see in the video, Srila Bhakti Prabhupada Puri Maharaj sees, he doesn't see a T-shirt of Jagannath. He sees Jagannath. So he starts to move from his bed, trying to go down and fall in Dandavat, no, in front of Jagannath, because for him, is Jagannath and the T-shirt of Jagannath are not different. Right? Of course, his devotees try to prevent him from doing that, because it's a whole event to go from your bed to the floor in Dandavat at 100 years old. But he was not trying to make a show to others. He was genuinely seeing Jagannath in a T-shirt. We see a T-shirt with Jagannath, then we squeeze it, wash it, throw it to the washing machine, pour Jagannath like this, then back to Jagannath, still smiling. Hopefully, he's generous. But again, just to make a contrast, not to make anyone feel guilty, just to make a contrast for someone like Srila Puri Maharaj, that was not a T-shirt. So in the same way, for someone like Bhaktisiddhanta, you say, oh, that was a picture. No, that was not a picture. And one more thing, just to not overextend myself in this connection, is that there are many cases of many personalities in our tradition, in other traditions, who just basically renounce the world without officially taking any vows. No? Shankaracharya, for example. He just took, he didn't took sannyas. He just left the world and started traveling when he was like, 7 years old? Between 4 and 7. So he just walked north, as the scriptures say sometimes. He never probably underwent the particular ritual and this name and the dand and the. In time, some of those things, those details became ritualized. But in one sense, you don't need permission from anyone to renounce it. At the end of the day, it's about, renounce the world. Doesn't mean escapism and indifference. By world, we mean certain type of world. So that's another argument we could make. Many sannyasis from other traditions, including our tradition, we do not know their sannyas gurus, probably because they didn't have one. They were just renouncements. Sannyasis, Babajis, these are words. At the end of the day, some word used sometimes yati, which means renunciant. Probably they didn't underwent any particular formal initiation, acceptance of. I'm not against ritual or vows or formality, but sometimes in some cases you have something like this. Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta enter a room, closed doors, picture of Gaura Kishore Das Babaji, enter as a brahmachari, left the room as a sannyasi. No? And then live the rest of his life upholding that vow in a perfect way. So how much we can question the validity of what happened in that room between him and his guru, so to say. I don't know if that helps in any way, or is something else behind the question, some question behind the question.
Just like Sampradayas, they didn't have sannyas.
Again, sorry?
The other Sampradayas, did they not have any sannyasis at the time of Sri Bhaktisiddhanta?
Which sampradaya?
The other Sampradayas.
The other sampradayas. Oh, yeah.
They did.
Yeah.
So he was establishing.
Yeah. Yeah. Madhva Sampradaya, Ramanuja Sampradaya, many sannyasis. In their sampradayas, sannyasis is a big thing. Again, in Gaudiya Sampradaya, sannyas has never been that much of a big thing. Because again, sannyas is mostly seen as part of the varna ashram. Brahmachari has the vanaprastha sannyasi. And generally the mood of Gaudiya Vaishnavism is sarva dharmam parityaja. And dharma, for many commentators, means varna ashram dharma. So we throw varna ashram dharma out of the window. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur will speak about Daivi varna ashram. No, like following the system in a substantial way, which means act according to your acquired nature, be aligned with your vocational natural inclinations, and engage that in the context of bhakti. So Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta somehow try to fulfill that desire of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who spoke about Daivi Varnashram by not only sannyas. I mean, he made many adjustments who were revolutionary at the time. Sannyas in front of the picture, giving Brahmin thread to his disciples who were not born as Brahmins. That was outrageous for many. I mean, many people tried to kill Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. But his point was trying to, again, show that the Vaishnavas are Brahmins plus. A Brahmin is not by birth, a Brahmin is by quality, ideally. No? And this is in the Bhagavatam, again, Prahlad Maharaj is saying that. There's this whole section of Varnashram in the 7th canto. It's not that by being born as a Brahmin, you are a Brahmin. According to the qualities you show, you are a Brahmin or you are whatever you are. But it's upon qualities. The same with being born, I don't know. Nowadays, sometimes devotees are like, oh, this person was born in the family of Nityananda Prabhu. Therefore, is highest. I mean, of course, all glories to being born in the family of Nityananda Prabhu. So there's a whole big argument about whether there is an actual blood descendants from Nityananda Prabhu, but that's another conversation. But the point is, I need to see your qualities. It's not enough that you just say, I'm born in Nityananda Prabhu's family. Nityananda is in my blood. So that gives you license to do anything and everything, because sometimes we have seen that. Even in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, you see Advaita Acharya. He had different sons, and some of his sons were deviated, and he actually took a distance from them. And they were sons of Advaita Acharya. So it can happen, right? So Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta tried to make this point with the Upavita or the Brahmin thread, trying to make the point. A Vaishnava is a Brahmin plus, no? And by qualities. So yeah, he made many adjustments. Very interesting, very necessary for the time. Of course, he was dynamic, and I'm sure at this particular time he will be making further adjustments in another direction. So that's always the danger when following someone who did all these adjustments. We may copy paste and say, okay, all that needs to be kept forever. But he was very sensitive to particular time, place, and circumstance he was in. So he didn't intend for that particular structure to remain in eternity. So that's the living spirit of a genuine parampara. Each particular teacher has to have that discernment. No? Like we always say, okay, some devotees will say, Srila Prabhupada said. Okay, but what he will be saying now? That's a real question. In some cases, he will be saying the same thing in some things. Some other cases, he may be saying something completely different. Well, okay, but he is not here to respond what he will be saying. Of course, so you are supposed to say what he will be saying now. That's parampara. And if we say, no, we cannot do that, we are not so advanced, only he can do that, that's false humility. Because we are not willing to commit ourselves and to grow, to be able to represent previous acharyas, because someone has to do it. Anyhow, some of the topics coming. Thank you. You raise your hand? Yeah.
Okay,
No. I'll take time.
Okay, so this morning you were speaking about how gaura-lila is the zenith of the zenith of zenith and lastly of everything. And I'm thinking that in my present state where I don't genuinely feel love for everyone around me, connecting with gaura-lila or something like so high can feel a bit distant. So how acknowledging our present conditions, we can still connect deeply.
Again, we have to understand that the fact that gaura-lila is the highest of the highest implies that it reaches to the lowest of the lowest. That's what makes it the highest. Sometimes we have a kind of elitistic idea of something being the highest. Something that is very far away, very remote, very exclusive, almost unattainable. But that's not the highest. That's why we say that the very definition of something which is the highest means it has to have the capacity to reach to the lowest. That's the nature of the infinite. So in that sense, the point is wherever we are, probably we don't feel we are in the highest of the highest of the highest inner state. But our solace is that the highest of the highest is the highest because it has the capacity to reach down even to the lowest of the lowest of the lowest of the lowest. If you feel you are there. No, in case you feel you're there, okay. I may be as low as I can and even lower than that. We have a great potential to go down. But that never defeats the potential of the highest to reach that place and shed mercy and grace even there. Because if not, we are giving more power to our anarthas than to Mahaprabhu's mercy, basically. Right? And so I'm so low that the highest can't come where I am. Why? Because I'm so low. It's more like an I am this. No, that's not that. No matter how degraded we are, and of course, this is not a license to degrade yourself more, but no matter how degraded we are, we think we are, or how fallen, or how broken, or how unhealed, or how confused, or how in crisis we think we are, or we actually are. The nature of the highest is that it can reach to the lowest and the lowest and purify that. Not only just reach and say hello, good luck, and leave, but redeem that portion. So that's interesting thing again. And I know it's paradoxical, and we need to again continue learning to think paradoxically. The highest embraces the lowest. Because again, many times somehow for whatever reason, we have inherited some misunderstanding that highest means something unattainable and exclusive and otherworldly that I can only deserve, and when I will get there when I earn it and become perfect, but not where I am now here. So we are pushing the highest. We are making the highest, not the highest, by thinking like that, right? You were saying something, sir?
Sometimes we hear the word unqualified,
Unqualified. Yeah.
Like
we are unqualified, but the highest is super qualified, right?
like in the sense that Mahaprabhu came to give Raga Bhakti, but there doesn't seem much conversation about that. And often if someone brings up the conversation, then we are not so qualified, something.
Again, there's a truth to say I'm not qualified.
No.
Krishna himself feels that. Remember what we talked today in the morning. Krishna is in front of the gopis and Radha say, I'm not qualified. We'll be talking tomorrow in the morning about this more, how Mahaprabhu is is Krishna's upgrade in Adhikar. No? Krishna in Krishna-lila feels, I'm not having enough Adhikar to deal with this. I have to upgrade my qualification, and that becomes Mahaprabhu. So God himself feels I'm disqualified. No? The highest of the highest feel disqualified. So yeah, no problem. We are all disqualified. Everyone feels disqualified. It's fine. No, we don't need to get neurotic about that. But also we don't need to, again, this notion of you are not qualified can be very weaponized to basically cancel critical thinking, to cancel anything and everything because you are not qualified. So when I will be qualified, I will tell you. And how do you know? Are you qualified? Oh yeah, really? How do you know? And all this, right? Because so, of course, there is a point to make. We may not be able to venture into certain levels of higher truths and depths without certain qualification. Qualification is required. I mean, you want to drive a scooty in Mayapur, you have to be qualified. Though in India, you will see 10-year-olds driving a scooty. There's no license, there is no helmet, but I don't know, they're driving. But my point is, ideally, there has to be qualification. But the qualification also is not so much in terms of, again, perfection. At the end of the day, qualification is, for us, is Shraddha, is faith. No? Faith and mercy. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says something very interesting in his Navadvip Bhavataranga. That's another beautiful book to read about Navadvip, to many. Navadvip Bhavataranga. The waves of ecstasy related to Navadvip. He wrote Navadvip Dhammahatmya and then Navadvip Bhavataranga. And then he says, Adhikar comes by Kripa. No? So our qualification is based on grace. Because many times we think qualification is only dependent on my effort and my credentials, and that qualifies me. No. Probably if you just think about it only depends on me, that's a disqualification. Doesn't mean you don't have to do your part and make an effort, as we talked the other day, but the effort is to appreciate the grace that is already there and to allow that to enter deeply. And that grace qualifies us. And have faith in that. That's the actual qualification. So that's the nature of gaura-lila. Again, we are in a land, Navadvip, Mayapur, Kaulavdarya, Dham, as we say. It's a land of utmost generosity. Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, they were distributing divine love to everyone. That was absolutely indiscriminate. There was no discrimination, literally. If you read these descriptions, it was like, it's not like, oh, you're not qualified. Oh, you are not qualified. Now, if you think you're qualified, that may prevent, as we will talk tomorrow in Sri Vasangam, right? Sri Vasangam was something deep, intimate, and there was some Brahmin that wanted to enter, and he thought, I can enter because I only drink milk. So I'm a very sattvic person. So I'm very qualified. Mahaprabhu say, get the hell out of him. Take him out. Implying he has a wrong idea of qualification. It's not that he's not willing to give mercy to that person, but as long as you are convinced that qualification comes by, I only eat this thing, I only do that thing, it's all depending on my own deeds and efforts and tapasya and austerity, that's not bhakti. Some other schools may emphasize more that austerity, penance, knowledge, renunciation, sannyas. But bhakti says, try to have faith in this. Of course, have an experience by grace, then develop faith and confidence and hope based on that experience. That's your adhikar, your qualification. So, yeah. Again, gaura-lila is the highest of the highest, but it goes, to the lowest of the lowest. That's the nature of the infinite. It can do all that. We are just, as Srila Maharaj will say, our problem is that we continue to impose limitations from our mind into the infinite. And the infinite remains infinite, but we filter the infinite through our inner world of limitations. So we start saying, no, the infinite cannot do that, this cannot happen, he cannot reach so low to here because I'm too fallen. That's all our own machination, you say?
Machination.
Yeah, that's a Spanish word, and I'm trying to. It's our own mental trip, let's put it that way. Like once someone told Srila Maharaj they were worshiping the deity, and someone say, how can you say that God is there? That's God. No. The infinite, no, appear in a finite form. Or how can you say, another argument, how can you say that we, the finite, can capture the infinite? If we can capture by love the infinite is no longer infinite. And he said, no, if the infinite does not have the capacity to allow himself to be captured by the finite, then it's not infinite. So in the same way, God is in the deity, how can it be in a finite form? If God does not have the capacity to be in a finite form and remain infinite, then it's not infinite. Infinite means a lot of things. And again, we are not talking here about rasa and all these esoteric truths. We're talking about the infinite. We are on a daily basis dealing with the infinite. That's very vulnerable. right? I'm confronting the infinite at every moment. Ooh, that can be overwhelming. But that's the truth. It's a sweet infinite. So that's the important qualification there. But yeah, that will be the main point. And gaura-lila is the highest of the highest, most esoteric, more generous, more everything. And in that most capable and willing to reach us wherever we are. There are so many lilas of Mahaprabhu showing that. And not only Mahaprabhu, of course, every great teacher, mystic, avatar, they will show that. The nature of the highest, it will reach to the lowest. It will be impartial, but also have some special inclination towards the disqualified. The nature, especially attracted to qualify the disqualified. Yeah, not for us to become more and more disqualified, to attract more the mercy of, but if you genuinely feel disqualified without neurosis, that attracts the qualification. Yeah. Rupa Goswami has a verse where he make a play of words between the words kripa and kripana. Some Sanskrit kripana means kind of, yeah, also like wretched or like, but also like not so much like, implying also that you feel disqualified. Oh, so kripana attracts kripa. Kripa means mercy, and kripana means I feel disqualified in a healthy way. Again, I have to repeat that part. Not with a whip in hand. But as a general, you feel small. No, sometimes you feel, yes, situation get out of control. I'm not so much in control of my own faculties. Simple things disturb me tremendously. Let's be honest. Sometimes we are not in much control of our faculty, and we shift from being a very loving person, and 10 seconds after that, I want to be the whole crowd or something like that. And it's like, what happened there? What's going on? But we may feel bad about ourselves. We feel like, oh, I'm so far away from being a balanced, mature human being. What to speak of being a lover of God? But if that feeling is experienced in a healthy way, in a sincere way, with the willingness to change, not to reinforce that identity, that kripanatva, that feeling of wretchedness, attracts kripa, attracts the necessary grace for us to be upgraded to the next level, to the next version of ourselves. And it's important to feel that in a real humble way. Not to get neurotic and feel bad about ourselves, get depressed, and at the end of the day, you end up thinking all day about yourself, about how bad you are. I'm so this and that. I am. And that was not the idea. But not go to the other extreme with nobody can tell me anything. No, there's nothing to change. I don't know. I don't feel bad about anything I do. Well, if you're doing things that create suffering or anxiety, probably you should feel bad about it. Not bad with toxic shame, but if I make you suffer and I don't feel anything, I'm a psychopath, basically, right? If on my way I put everyone into anxiety around me and every step I take, I was like, no guilt, no shame, everything. No, you are supposed to feel bad. No. Bad in the sense of repentance and change and transformation. And in Sanskrit, repentance is anutap, what follows after the fire. It's a fire that burns what needs to be burned and sheds light on what needs to be shed light on. So, yeah, we have to balance and put all the things together. So I would say if we are honest, every day we will have at least one chance. I will say way more than one, at least in my case. But if we pay attention, we have at least one chance to feel in a healthy way bad about ourselves and to pray for the necessary mercy to be promoted to the next version of ourselves. Maybe the word bad is triggering something unhealthy in you. I hope you get my point and use the word that works. Because if the day passes and I have not had any introspection and nothing to change, nothing to polish, or in a healthy way again. So, yeah. Nanda Kumar was raising his hand an hour ago. Sorry. And then Kanupriya, you raised your hand? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anatam Sitra.
I said after Kanupriya, it's if time for.
Well said. Yeah.
Yesterday you mentioned about offering ourselves like the grains.
Swaha.
Oh, you know. And then you just talked about the mercy coming down to the lowest, wherever we are, reaching us. And I think the question is how we can show up for that mercy. Like yesterday it was mentioned, you just like give everything. Seems like give everything. What do I have actually to give? What is there? Like I'm this tiny living being experiencing these things and trying to exploit things. But now I have come to know about this amazing mercy, availability. So the question is, I think the question, maybe there's some other thing, but the question is, what do I actually have to show up and to surrender? And perhaps it can vary.
Mm-hmm. Perhaps what, sorry?
It can be different at different times, because I have observed in my life
There is a phone vibrating somewhere.
that for many years I had a resource to do austerities. And now I look in a pocket, no such resource.
Mm-hmm.
As I view life, there is a different resources. And my question is like, what can I actually, with what I can actually show up to respond to that mercy? To
We don't need to impress the mercy or the mercy giver, right? We don't need to show up with something. Many times, actually, the question is, how do I get rid of all those somethings? And I'm trying to.
my part. And then with what I want to play my part.
Yeah. I'm answering. It's fine. I mean, the offering is yourself, right? The point is that sometimes we don't have a very clear idea of who we are. So how can I surrender myself if I do not know who I am? Or especially if I have a very, not so much, not a clear idea, but I think I have a clear idea of someone that I'm not. And that makes a problem because you say, like, that's what I'm supposed to offer to surrender? So, but the point is that the whole thing entails a false assumption, because we are thinking we are this whatever messy constellation or constellation of messiness. But that's not who we are, right? Who we are. Again, we may be far away from the full experience of who we are, but from the mercy department, that's very clear who we are. And the mercy department, so to say, another way of saying Mahaprabhu, remember I'm using Mahaprabhu mostly, he's seeing us for who we are. He's not seeing the messiness, he's not identifying us with the confusion, the brokenness, the fragmentation, the exploitation. That's not us. That's not ontologically part of the Jiva by constitution. That's not us. That's who we may think we are, but that's not us. So, big part of the surrender process, because as Jiva Goswami says, surrender, there are 6 aspects of surrender. Anukulyas sankalpa pratikulyas varjanam rakshishasti vishvaso goptritu varanam tata akmanikshepan karpanye shatvidas sharanagati. So one of the main ones are trust that Krishna is protecting you and accept that you are being maintained by God. And that's not easy. Especially accept that you are already maintained. Doesn't mean just the bread is provided to your table, but that you are being maintaining your very existence. You are sustained. You are kept alive. You are nourished. You are connected. You have a source, and that source loves you unconditionally and finds you an amazing person. So you are maintained from that place. It's not that Mahaprabhu is maintaining us like as a burden. Oh, okay, I have to maintain all these guys. What to do? I promise that's saying in scripture. I have to. No, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure for Bhagavan to maintain us. Why? Because he finds us wonderful. Right? Ascharyavat, Krishna 2:29, Bhagavad Gita. Soul is wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So, again, before what do I offer to Krishna, what do I surrender to Krishna? First, we may need to surrender, and surrender in this case, like letting go and releasing, we may need to surrender all the false narratives about who we are. That's very hard. That's no easy task. But that may be the beginning of surrender. That's why surrender begins anukulya sankalpa pratikulyas varjana. Accept whatever is favorable to bhakti, reject whatever is unfavorable to bhakti. So among whatever is unfavorable is having an impoverished idea about who we are, buying into false narratives about who we are. All that needs to be released. That's saranagati, that's surrender. Again, sometimes we have our own ideas about surrender. And of course, surrender takes different forms at different moments, but this is an important one. If I still hate myself, if I still see myself as whatever, less than what I actually am, that's unfavorable to bhakti by definition, and that needs to be let go of. And if I have not let go of that, then I should work on that. And I shouldn't be thinking about other forms of surrender. Giving everything for Krishna's pleasure and blah, blah, blah. If I still walk in my day-to-day thinking, I'm crap. Because we are leading our daily lives in a fundamentally wrong way that goes right against what Mahaprabhu was thinking of us. He said, you are amazing. He said, I'm crap. You are amazing. I'm crap. That doesn't sound like a healthy conversation. Right? And you are trying to convince the one who said you're amazing that actually you are crap. That doesn't go anywhere. So again, this is, we have to begin there with that faith, with that conviction. Okay, Mahaprabhu is seeing me as amazing. I have to believe that. And I think we all have glimpses of the amazingness of the soul, of the Atma. And in connection to bhakti and grace, the amazingness reaches newer and newer levels. So we need to be exposed into those types of reflections maybe first, and to be drenched into those ideas. I think in Ayurveda they have this term called bhavana, which means like drenching a particular substance many times, till it absorbs whatever it needs to absorb, particular oil or medicine, and it becomes like more and more condensed in its absorbing. Sometimes we need to stay there a long time. That's why I feel like I have to talk a lot about Krishna loves you unconditionally. Because you are proving me right now that you still don't believe that. And it's fine. I'm not saying that for you to feel miserable about that. It's not. It's part of the journey to. Oh, I heard that 3,000 times. I'm still not buying into that. Okay, let's speak again from another way, from another angle, with another words. Let's do an exercise if it helps to internalize it. Because we may have walked into that narrative for eons and lifetimes. So it may take time to reverse the script. It's okay. Because if we don't accept that and start to torture ourselves because of that, then you are reinforcing the same toxic narrative again. So, yeah. So how to show up, what to surrender to Krishna, show up as naked as you can, as honest as you can, knowing yourself fully accepted and loved as you are. That's not easy. Sounds romantic. It's not easy. That's why I posted that the other day, as funny as that was the video of us dancing with Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu on the screen. As I told you that day, the underlying truth that is, you have to have the courage to show up and see yourself in the midst of them. While internally you think, I'm crap. I cannot be there. Who I am to be there? But there are, no, come. You already belong. We already see you as part of us. Come. No. And they are, yeah. Om. Yes. So, again, yeah, each of us has to ask, that's a daily question. Okay, what do I need to, how do I surrender today? What do I need to surrender? What do I need to let go? As difficult as it is. Yeah, of course, ultimately we want to offer ourselves, make of our hearts a beautiful bouquet for the pleasure of Bhagavan, with the most loving sentiments and emotions favorable and to his pleasure and fully identified to the need of service. Yes, Om. But we will not get there if I still have a very primitive notion of who I am. And I feel I'm nothing, I'm an absolutely insignificant entity who is almost bordering non-existence, and God does not care for me, and I'm overly identified with my mental undulations, and that's the end of the story of who I am. And I totally lost sight that Mahaprabhu is already loving me fully. I have to be living into that, entering that space and staying again there enough. So I start to absorb those ideas. And then we can reciprocate and return embrace for the right reasons. Because as long as I have not healed that foundational wound, all my approaches to God probably will be tinged with guilt and shame and transactional issues, and I have to and I should, because if not, and all that is because I'm still have a misunderstanding on the foundational level of who I am. Who I am? Someone fully beloved by Mahaprabhu. That's the most accurate definition of who you are. No, Maharaj, but if you will know what's going on in my mind. You think you are the only one who has a mind. We all know what's going on in the mind when the mind is out of control. It can go anywhere, we'll know that. But again, we cannot give more power to the mind than to create God's unconditional love. That's doing the math wrong. You can say, no, but my mind is the most out of control mind in the whole Mayapur district now, today. Even if that's the case, if we could measure that with some system, if that will be objectively the case, still the mercy of Mahaprabhu outgrows and overweights that way long. That's a joke. All your anartha, Govardhan pile of anarthas, that's nothing. So, yeah, we need to expose ourselves more and more to this type of messages, which are not mine. Again, I'm just repeating what Scripture said. So then we really believe that there is something in me that is worthy of being offered in surrender to Krishna. Because if I'm convinced there's nothing worthy here to being offered, then I will never show up, because I'm full of shame. I will be hiding all day, because if they really see who I am, oh my God. So we need to dismantle that false story. It may take a few lifetimes. It's okay. I'm being real. I'm not joking. It's okay. Like when someone asks you, let's say, Maharaj, if I must start in Bhakti in this lifetime, how many lifetimes will it take to reach the ultimate goal? I say, well, if you are very serious, committed, 3 lifetimes. Very serious, committed, what must it mean for Srila Siddha Maharaj? So you can extend the number for 12. But that's fine. Not to create laziness, but just like we need to integrate everything properly on the journey. So whenever we reach, we are a whole offering again. So in this lifetime, my Achilles heel maybe learning to relate to myself in a healthy way. Okay, there we go. Celebrate that you have received those news. We have some homework there waiting for us. So yeah, that's very important. Surrender has a lot to do with that. I remember in the next book that I'm planning to publish, it's all about unconditional love, and it's very tied to the idea of surrender. I remember there was let's see if it's here. May not be so easy to find. But there's a beautiful quote by Father Richard Rohr in that sense. But how will I find it? I have Father Richard Rohr all throughout the book. Oh, there are other quotes coming. I will share them. They're beautiful. Say, grace is not something God gives. Grace is who God is. Grace is God's official job description. Grace is what God does to keep alive forever all things that God has created in love. Anyhow, hear this. Surrender is the willingness to trust that you are really a beloved son of God. It really is that simple. So it's another way of speaking about surrender. Surrender is the willingness to trust that I'm the beloved of Mahaprabhu.
The nice tattoo around the neck.
There are some tattoo shops here in Mayapur, sense. Still you have time? No? So that's a beautiful definition of surrender. The willingness to trust that I'm loved. Because again, many times we don't have the trust. We don't feel that. So how to enter into that and how to stay into that space? At least to have the willingness. Again, willingness means I may not be feeling it, but I'm willing to to make whatever it takes to get closer to that reality. That's surrender. Because again, in being willing to enter into that place, you have to let go of so many other things, so many false narratives that many times have defined our entire existence. So it may feel as scary as those narratives are, it may feel even more scary to release those narratives, because those are the only narrative we have known, and that somehow provide us with a sense of identity, as we talked this day. Releasing that is like, okay, this is horrible, but if I release this, I'm left with nothing. So that's even worse. So surrender implies trusting that by releasing that, there is something else. And of course, we have had some experience that that's the case. It's not there's zero experience and I'm releasing and I'm going crazy. If we are discerning and honest and intelligent, we know we have had experiences that we are there is someone waiting for us down the cliff. No? Jump. And not jump alone, but with family. Take hands, 1, 2, 3. There we go. And we have these persons that if we are still trembling, I don't know if to jump. Okay, they jump. And then they return. Here I am. I was received. Now you trust me? Okay. Oh, it worked. Let's go again. So at the beginning, it's terrifying. So yes, surrender is that. The willingness to trust that you are loved. And the more you enter into that, you trust not only that you are loved, but that you are lovable, and therefore that you can be loving towards someone else. Because if I think I'm unloved, I'm unlovable, then the natural extension is I'm unable to love others. Because nobody's loving me, so how can I love anyone? So don't even think about loving God, because you think nobody's loving me, I'm unlovable, unloved, how can I be loving? So that's why we need to get there first, properly. And surrender is all about that, being willing to explore that possibility, which is not a possibility, but is the only actual reality. That's that's one of the greatest tragedies. That's how I speak in my book. The greatest tragedy is that you are already fully loved, but we live as if that's not the case. That's a tremendous tragedy. You are fully loved by the most important person in the most comprehensive way, and we may live days and weeks and months and years and lifetimes without a clue of that. And at the same time, desperate for love and trying to get love in all the wrong ways, when that's already provided for free from time immemorial in the most generous way. So, anyhow, some words on surrender. And it's one more thing. Jiva Goswami says in Bhakti Sandarbha, surrender, Sharanagati, is the outward expression of Shraddha or faith. So regarding what I just said, try to connect the points. So if I have deep faith, deep conviction, I'm being loved and being accepted, that will express itself in the form of surrender, in the form of the willingness to let go of whatever gets in the way of that thing that I have faith in, that I have experienced to some degree. So surrender is, a yardstick to my faith. So if I'm not willing to surrender much, means my faith is not that developed, which is fine, it's part of the journey. But then, okay, how can I develop my faith? And faith is not belief. Faith means you had an experience, and the trust that comes from that undeniable experience builds your faith. So again, how can I have those experiences that will create the faith that will express itself in the form of surrender? And that's a reinforcing circle. That surrender creates newer experience, which reinforce your faith, which takes you to another level of surrender, like a spiral, more and more, and there's no limit to that. But we have to begin somewhere, and of course that somewhere is wherever we are now, attending whatever needs to be tended in the here and now, in terms of experience, faith, surrender. Yeah. What do you think?
Thank you. I thought on this last point of the faith, recently is there was Renee Brown who was sharing something about her daughter and trust, who to trust, and she gave this example of marble jar that you don't know if you can trust, the faith is there, but then some small thing, an act of compassion, trust, or what you're talking about, what we are going through.
Mm-hmm.
We had already some experience that we are loved, that we are worthy, and we are amazing. So then that's one marble. And then you add another one when it happens again, and another one, another one, another one. And that's how it's built. It's not like some lightning comes and hits you and you're just like, whoa. I mean, probably can happen, but I guess it's a gradual process, treasuring these marvels of experiences of faith and building up that container, and also therefore expressing it in a way of sort of. Thank you.
Let's conclude this particular interaction with a poem by Hafiz, rendered by Daniel Ladinsky. There are many poems about how God loves us from him, but this one that came, its title is "This Place Where You Are Right Now." See, this place where you are right now, God circled on a map for you. Wherever your eyes and arms and heart can move against the earth and sky, the beloved has bowed there. Beloved means Mahaprabhu. The beloved has bowed there knowing you were coming. I could tell you a priceless secret about your real worth, dear pilgrim. But any unkindness to yourself, any confusion about others, will keep one from accepting the grace, the love, the sublime freedom that divine knowledge always offers to you. Never mind, Hafiz, about the great requirements this path demands of the wayfarers, for your soul is too full of wine tonight to withhold the wondrous truths from this world. But because I'm so clever and generous, I have already clearly woven a resplendent lock of his tresses as a remarkable gift in this verse for you. This place where you are right now, God circled on a map. And wherever, dear, you can move against this earth and sky, the beloved has bowed there, knowing you were coming. It was written for you, Nanda. Hafiz would think inspired by Nanda Kumar that moment. And each one of us as well.
Probably knew we would already be there.
Anupriya.
Okay. I think my question is quite connected to this topic. I came with this question to this spirit word because many times you mentioned we are afraid of our brightest potential. And I was wondering, okay, what does it mean for a pilgrim? Because I think I'm not aware that I'm afraid of my greatest potential. I don't feel this fear. I feel a lot of fear in other regards, but I'm not afraid. Also, I don't feel this fear of my greatest potential. So how can I become aware of it, and what does it mean, especially as a pilgrim now?
I'm not saying you have fear of your greatest potential. If you don't have it, that's great.
I think
I'm not here trying to convince you. No, you actually have that fear, right? The fact that you don't see it means that you have no, not necessarily. No, it can happen. No, it's a possibility.
It's no, I sense I have it, but I cannot connect to this.
Okay. One paragraph from the next book, some trailer regarding this, because I speak about that here. Of course, this is based on something that is spoken by different authors. In this case, Abraham Maslow, psychologist, he will speak about the Jonah complex. So Jonah is a character from the Bible, that he was basically running away from the greatness that he was born to embody. Again, each soul has a potential, each one of us. Again, it's the beautiful thing we actually are. there's a greatness, a potential. But of course, that sometimes can be so great that we can be overwhelmed by that. And there's a great responsibility. So that's why I mentioned here, it says, let me share the quote from Abraham Maslow and then one paragraph, and then we say something else. So Abraham Maslow said, we fear our highest possibilities. We are generally afraid to become that which we can glimpse in our most perfect moments, under the most perfect conditions, under conditions of greatest courage. We enjoy and even thrill to the godlike possibilities we see in ourselves in such peak moments. And yet, we simultaneously shiver with weakness, awe, and fear before these very same possibilities. That's a quote. Then I mentioned briefly, to touch that edge of greatness is to feel the trembling weight of sacred responsibility. Becoming whole demands more than healing what is broken. It calls for daring to become what is most radiant. And sometimes it is not our wounds, but our wings that most terrify us. A little bit poetic here. So, of course, again, it's beautiful. The potential of a pilgrim is beautiful. The potential of our wings is beautiful. But at the same time, many of us, some of us, most of us, all of us, I don't know. You have to see. But in general, until and unless we are, how to say, accustomed to swim into those waters, our greatest potential still remains a great mystery, something very unknown to us. As we were talking before, especially when we are over-identified with the mind fluctuations and the relativity of whatever, the actual greatest potential of the soul is basically unknown. And generally we are terrified about what we don't know. Generally we tend to run to what's familiar, predictable, controllable. Okay, it gives me security. I know all this. I know how this works, how this operates, how this can be used in my service. But if I'm spoken about the notion of unknowability, probably I don't want to go there. Even if they say, no, but that ocean that you don't know is your greatest potential, is brilliant, but I don't have a clue as that. So probably, so pilgrim means that. Pilgrims means to gradually step into, pilgrim means again, sacred journey, and sacred journey many times implies gaining a new awareness, gaining a new perspective on who I am, as we're talking now. And a new perspective of who I am hopefully means a more accurate perspective of who I am in terms of my potential. And gaining that glimpse, I'm starting to become familiar with that. It's not so unknown anymore. I dare to taste those waters. I'm not drowning. Okay, I can taste a little bit more. I will jump a little bit, gradually, till I realize, oh, I'm meant to, as we're quoting today, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Mano Hamsa Charati Tahate. Say Chaitanya Lilahoy, Sarabharakshoy, Mano Hamsa Charati Tahate. Speaking about Chaitanya Lila, gaura-lila, this Sarabharakshoy. This is like an endless lake. Mahaprabhu's Lila. Mano Hamsa, may the swan of my mind, Charati Tahate, swim in that lake forever. But again, in the beginning, we may be terrified about entering that lake. Probably because my mind is not a swan yet. So first, again, we have to become swan-like, Hamsa, Paramahamsa, and then we won't be afraid of swimming in that lake, in those depths, in that breadth. So that's I would say that's one of the main reasons why we may be afraid of our brightest potential. Not because it's bright, but because we are too accustomed to, in whatever case that is, I'm too familiar with darkness, not with the healthy darkness. We have nothing against darkness either. And light is painful. No, imagine I put you inside a closet where there's no light for 1 month. No, I'm not that bad. I won't do that. But never say never. I don't know. Pray to Mahaprabhu. I don't endeavor. And so light and darkness becomes your only point of reference. You're all in all. You're all in all. Your known reality is darkness. And suddenly I let a ray of light entering. That will feel like a nail entering your eye or something. It's like, close that door right now, please. Bring darkness back. It doesn't mean that light is bad. It's that you are not accustomed to that. And one single ray is death. And other people is doing sunbathing with other problems. Because they have gained exposure to the light, and they have entered into a relationship with the light. So where we are in those terms, how much exposure to the light we are willing to tolerate. Again, not to feel bad about ourselves, but just to acknowledge what's my adhikar. Adhikar qualification also could be seen my capacity to deal with light. Inner light, the light of knowledge, the light of grace. Because light comes and shows everything for what it is. Are we willing to see everything for what it is? Without going crazy about it, without increasing our shame. Again, that's why it's so necessary to have a foundation of, despite whatever that is, I'm fully loved and accepted by God. So when the light comes and shows whatever that is, still the light will show, despite all that I'm showing you, the main light saying you are being loved and accepted. That's the main ray pointing to the main truth. So it's a gradual exposure. Sometimes different analogies are given in the tradition. Fire is given sometimes. Like we are like a raw product and we need to be cooked in the fire to be offered for the pleasure of Krishna. But in the beginning, we get close to the fire a little bit, a little bit more, till you can swaha again. You jump into you become fire. Let's take the example of this world. The sun. The sun is like the example of light. And you can look at the sun, especially here in Bengal in the morning. Oh, nice. That beautiful orange ball coming from the horizon is like. And at one point, it's a little bit more difficult to just look at the sun. It's like, oof. What to speak of going and living in the sun planet? You cannot do that because you don't have a body made of fire. But in our scriptures, they say there are people living in the sun, but their bodies are made of fire prominently. So they can deal with the fire. Our bodies on earth are mostly made of earth. So fire we can handle on some level, but too much fire is like, I'm getting burned, I'm getting out of here. So follow the analogy. In this case, we're talking light, fire. Eventually, we're made to become fire, to enter into that reality, tadatmya. You like the word tadatmya? It means that. The only moment in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Jiva Goswami used the word tadatmya is a famous example. You take an iron bar and you put it into the fire. At one point, the iron bar becomes imbibed with all the qualities of the fire, and for all practical purposes, it becomes fire. It attains tadatmya with the fire. It attains oneness, sameness between iron and fire. But it may be a gradual exposure. So as pilgrims, we are invited to do that. Tasting the fire of situations that are not the normal. I'm not in my house. I'm not with my schedule. The cat is not nearby or whatever. I don't have my daily set of certainties. Hopefully you have enough certainties as to not go crazy these days. You are looking fine so far. But there will be some challenges and discomfort and bewilderment and someone losing a luggage or whatever. Or just being in a different place and different weather, different time zone, different culture, different everything. That in itself is unsettling. Created some holy disorder, but necessary one. How much do I allow myself to be exposed to that? And all that we shed some light about something, about us. We have to trust that's happening already. But we have to be attentive as good pilgrims. Okay, what's happening? Which are my reactions these days? Which are my feelings to this or that? Or I don't know. Whatever it may be. It can be anything. And all that is hinting at my potentials, at my brightest potential, but sometimes my brightest potential is hinted at through embarrassing situations, things that I see like ordinary, embarrassing, but if properly understood, they're hinting at all that I can be. But to reach there, first I need to go through that. And sometimes we don't need to. Again, my brightest potential just doesn't come by, I had a dream and I saw myself as whatever, a gopi in Vrindavan doing this service, and I was floating in an ocean of ecstasy. As we were, sometimes I reach my brightest potential by first confronting my shadow and integrating all that. And because of that, we may say, I'm terrified about my brightest potential. Not because of the potential itself, the potential is beautiful, but what it takes to get there, I have to confront a few things for me to actualize my potential. And that may be terrifying. So that's why we gradually need to be more grounded in faith, in trust, in unconditional love, in proper sangha support. So the terrifying thing becomes scary, not terrifying, still scary. But there is a trust and a confidence and a momentum and a support that makes me know, yeah, but I need to walk through that fire, so to say. And I'm seeing other people, I'm gaining courage, momentum. Okay, that's it. And from terrifying to scary to necessary to beautiful and tasteful at one point. Right. Yeah. Since we are sharing stuff, let me give you a trailer of a series of articles that we will be publishing in a few days. I'm going to the wrong folder. I want to share something about Parakya Bhava and the mood of the gopis and Sri Radha. So there is a poem written by someone called Govinda Das. It's very interesting, beautiful, poetic, that describes how Sri Radha trains herself every day for the challenge that she's about to meet every night in order to meet Krishna for Rasa-lila and other pastimes. Again, it's not an easy thing. It's not just I call an Uber and I'm there. Right? There is a lot to go through. A lot for her to go through to attain her brightest potential in union with Krishna. So Govinda Das says, to prepare herself for walking over the thorny pathways on the way to the trysting grove at night, Radha strews thorns over her yard in the daytime and learns how to tolerate their pricks. She learns how to wrap her ankle bells into her cloth so that she can run at night without making any sound. She throws water over her yard in the daytime to learn how to walk over slippery paths at night. And she covers her eyes with her hands in the daytime to learn how to walk in the dark at night. Also, she rewards a snake charmer with a jewel bangle for teaching her a mantra that will stifle the snakes that might attack her at night. and that will protect her from the attacks of wild beasts of prey. For Krishna's sake, Radha takes even unlimited misery to be like great bliss. So again, all this sounds like, ooh, but for her it's great bliss. Because all in the context of the abhisar, of the love journey, to meet her beloved and serve him. Her greatest potential, but she is willing to go through all this complexity. Not to compare ourselves to Sri Radha, but like a way of saying, okay, I want to meet Krishna, I want to reach my highest potential in divine love. Okay, but we have to go through a few things that may be a little scary. But have the willingness to show up. What do you think, Anupriya? How does it sit?
I mean, I feel this was a whole series of all the answers you gave was like a thread.
Which was the common thread? I mean, I agree, but I'm asking, in your feeling, which will be the common thread?
The common thread of this unconditional.
Okay.
Depending on experience and
Let's conclude with an exercise inviting groups of three sharing what's the common thread for each one. Next time we address Anutam Chitra's question. Can it wait?
Sure.
Okay, because we have 5 more minutes for dinner. So we will do a short exercise, may take 5-6 minutes. So we'll be in triads in groups of 3 and each one share with you. If you perceive a common thread, which is that thread, or if you want just, which was the common thread for you? Again, it may not be the same for the other person, but how, hopefully, if you find any coherence in what was shared today, how that hit you personally. No? Make it personal, okay? But I will stop the recording here and we'll go to the exercise. Sachinandan Gaur Hari Ki Jai. Gaur Hari.